is day before's paper, and the reason that I'm doing day before's paper is there are a couple of articles day before. So this is, if you see, this is your 6th of September. September is what we are covering now. President of Bharat, Prime Minister of Bharat now official. Government says change of name, just of a rumor. You can read this. Then another article that you can read is India versus China. Also Vasudhaiv Kutumbakam versus One Belt One Road. These are 2-3 topics that you can do. There's nothing to it. But let me cover through the meat, because we have to cover 2 newspapers. Let me cover 2 the most important articles that is there. Reducing friction is okay. Let's. So let's talk about this particular article. RBI should carefully examine on digital currencies to determine the way forward. Now, as we already know that RBI has already launched its e-rupee. Similar has been the case with throughout the world, that a number of countries, especially 19 of the 20 G20 countries, are in the advanced stage of their digital currencies. So India has only launched the pilot projects both at retail and at wholesale level. So you need to read about what is this retail level and what is this wholesale level of RBI's digital currency. Now, it had floated this tentative step in October 2022, and last year they already started it. RBI governor, while speaking at G20 Tech Spirit finale, had said that slowly and steadily expanding the CBDC, the central bank digital currency pilot, to more bank cities and this thing. And the number of cities that have been reported, have been added, are new ones. Then apart from that, this is extremely useful because of the fact that the central bank is now aiming to cross over 1 million users and 2.6 lakh merchants. And if you see the kind of UPI, the kind of zoom that UPI has taken in the last 2-3 years, I think it has crossed 10 billion transactions very recently. So with that, they shows that this e-rupee will be even more efficient, even more better, because of the fact that there is no intermediary that is there. So the central bank is aiming for 10 lakh CBSE transactions per day by the end of the year. And considering the widespread usage of the UPI architecture, which is 10 billion transactions, the interoperability will again have a higher adoption. And the aspect of your country to country transfers, the aspect of financial inclusion, all of this will further increase because of this central bank transfer. So it will be faster, cheaper, and more secure. Simultaneously, I also want you to read about this thing, your blockchain technology, and how blockchain technology aids this digital currency or cryptocurrency. So please read about this particular. Then let's go to the next page. 3 articles which are important. This north and south, east versus west. Now what has happened is that you should also know that while G20, there's this mania of G20 that is running, and this fever of G20 that has been running in the country, there has also been there's also been an ASEAN summit in which India has also participated, because India comes under ASEAN plus 6. So ASEAN countries, you should remember all these 10 countries that are there. It is at times difficult to remember it. Even for G20, I think they had done something on the group. You can use that. It was quite. But at times you need to make mnemonics, folks. You will not be able to remember this. I clearly remember that I had mnemonics for almost all the areas of the world, and you will have at least 1 to 2 questions which you can easily solve through these mnemonics of world mapping. So one is ASEAN countries, ASEAN plus 6 countries. Now, apart from that, what has happened is this East Asia summit that has happened, and it's an expanded. So East Asia summit is an expanded ASEAN plus 6. So that was there in Indonesia. Now, both Russia and China were again missing from this meeting, and what have yeah. So this ASEAN summit has also showed us that, and even G20 is also showing us that Delhi is critical to the Indo-Pacific Quadrilateral Forum, and Delhi is basically going to provide some kind of security. Delhi and US is going to provide some kind of security in the atmosphere where China is kind of creating its map, and creating its hegemony, and having its both trade as well as border issues with other countries. So we are for open seas and open navigation. That is what we bring to the Indo-Pacific forum. Now China has this challenge. So the issue with Russia is that it is locked with a war with Ukraine, and China is again not going for multilateralism. It deals with bilateral relations. It's not going for multilateral rule-based order. Remember, that is why China is not even participating in any of these multilateral forums, neither East Asian Summit nor this your G20. It's because it is backing out of these multilateral forums. It is saying that we want to negotiate with countries on a one-to-one basis. Then so India's bilateral challenges, if you see this portion, India's bilateral challenges with China has emerged, with China has multiplied. Regional and multilateralism has emerged as the core of India's national security and international relations. So, and that's why India is investing so much in Quad and G20. Now, another thing that we'll read today is India is calling Quad countries, or the other three countries, which is your Australia, and then Japan and US, to the Republic Day celebrations. We'll see whether all of them will be able to come, but this is the importance that we are putting to these two forums. Then after the end of the Cold War era, what had happened was there was this environment that was created for multilateralism. One was that Russia was now being added. Russia was also becoming open. Russia was added from G7 to G8. China was allowed to get into mainstream economics, and in 2001 it also joined WTO. Then apart from that, there was regional association and integration under the banner of European Union. So what we saw was true multilateralism phase from 1991 till 2008, 2009, even till 2010, till the unfolding of the Eurozone crisis. Till that, these 20 years were given towards multilateralism, and that is what is given. But after 2014, first the Ukrainian annexation, Ukraine's Crimea annexation. So basically, Russia had already taken up Crimea, one of the leading ports in Ukraine, that was annexed by Russia in 2014. And then you had the Russian war against Ukraine, then the China's unilateral efforts to change the border with its neighbor, including India. And all of that has led to basically the emergence of new security initiatives. So the initiatives that we have seen, and this is something that you should be aware about, that what has happened, AUKUS, which is Australia, UK, US. Then you have Australia, Britain, US. Then you have US, Japan, and South Korea. You have the Quad. So if you see, China has, what it has done is, it has because of its adventures, it is there are a number of these groupings that have come, which are which are actually targeting China, and the fact that and the fact that this peaceful rise of China, which Deng Xiaoping had imagined, is now no more a peaceful rise. So this is something that has happened, and in the post Cold War multilateralism, what has happened is that it has been threatened by Russia and China, and now we are coming up to an era of new Cold War, which even China says that you are going into a new era of Cold War. So we are seeing a new era of Cold War, where you have the East versus the West, countries like Russia and China versus the rest of the Western world. But at the same point of time, what India has done is, India has brought multilateralism, has brought fire to multilateralism again in the new architecture of G20, where it is talking about that we need to, and it's a very, very important point, folks, you need to note this point, is that we are not in competition. Just a second, folks. So the four features of India's new multilateral standout in Jakarta and Delhi summits is that that Quad is not in competition with ASEAN, and it complements the effort of regional stability. The second is and which is very important, is re-globalization. We need another phase of globalization, where globalization is not just about consumption, that any particular commodity can be consumed anywhere. It is about shared and diversified production as well as consumption, and which means that we should also have resilient and stable supply chains. This is again a theme which the Indian government is talking about, and we'll read about the Prime Minister's article today, and that also theme talks about this thing. And then we should not be walking away from finding collective solution to crisis in multilateralism, and finally putting the concerns of global south onto the world agenda, and then basically building bridges between the developed and the developing countries through emphasis on multilateralism. So India is trying to bridge the gap between the north and the south, whereas what China has and Russia has done is basically create confrontation between the east and the west. So this is an important article that is there. Then with respect to this article, you can read this article, but the last point, the last 2-3 paragraphs of this article is very important, which it talks about that how much is our debt to how much is our this thing GST, despite the fall in decrease in the number of GST slabs, despite the GST rates from 15.5%, which the RBI had suggested, to somewhere around 11.6% because of the tax cuts, and despite the fact that the income tax rates have come down from 30%, or from the corporate tax has come down from 30% to 22%, and income tax has come down. What has happened is the compliance and the base of the tax has increased, and that is why the tax to GDP has become robust, especially the non-tax, the indirect tax has become more robust. And what we need is that we need the underlying economy to grow, and as the organized sector rises, more will be the share that will accrue. So this portion of the article is important, but otherwise you can read this entire article. Then directly coming to the editorial, this thing, folks, 2-3 important. So India, that is Bharat, how Constituent Assembly decided. So there is this debate that is happening, that should India be called as Bharat or not. Now constitutionally, both of them already exist in the country. If you read the Hindi version of the Constitution, it says Constitution of Bharat. It says Bharat. The preamble of Bharat. So Bharat was there anyways being used in the second part of in the Hindi version of the Constitution. Now the first part, basically, just in case if you want to read it, is not very important from the exam point of view, but still for the debate point of view, I would say that this debate had already been done in the parliament. A lot of members were in favor that instead in Article 1, instead of using India, that is Bharat, it should be Bharat, which is also called by foreigners as in foreign land as India. So this is debate whether we should use Bharat as the primary name or India as the primary name. If you ask me, my personal opinion is that on Bharat, but at the same point of time, I'm just worried about the cost of adoption. That when you have to change everything across everything, when you start changing names, you're unnecessarily spending a lot of time, effort, and money to do that when something is very obvious. So, but apart from that, if you talk about these debates were already there in the Constitution. A number of people had pointed out to this. In fact, the Constitution of Irish Free State reads that the name of the state is Irie. In English, in English language, it is Ireland. So it is not the first time where it is when some country has basically given itself this particular name. Then apart from that, the ancient references of Bharat comes from Vishnu Purana and Brahma Purana, and even other travelers like Hune Sang had also referred to India in the 7th century, had also referred to India as Bharat, and there are other pamphlets that India is also more ancient than Bharat, because idiom and India means and Id means fire, but the word India gets its significance from our colonial masters also. So you can read about this, but at the end of the day, what Ambedkar said is this is not much of an. I mean, this should not take much of our time. We have other things to do, and this is what my philosophy is, that we have other things to do than to have to debate on this. The other article that you can read is the last part, which talks about the history of nations named from Rig Veda to the Constitution. It talks about how Constitution 1 refers to Article 1 uh, refers to भारत का संविधान, भारत के लोग, हम भारत के लोग, भारत का राष्ट्रपति. So it is already being used, and in national anthem we talk about India as Bharat Bhagya Vidhata. So what are the roots of Bharat? It appears in Rig Veda, and as the name of a tribe of Sudas who defeated the enemy coalition of the Battle of the 10 Kings, and Rig Veda also refers Bharat people and Bharata sons. Then Bharatvarsha as a geographical entity can also be traced. So this is the name Bharata where it comes from, Rig Veda. But apart from that, as a geographical entity, it comes from the Puranic literature and the epic Mahabharata, where we are called as the people who are at the south of the snowy mountains and the north of the big ocean. That these are the descendants of Bharata. Then apart from that, what about Hindustan and India? So Hindustan has been used from the has been derived from the word Hindu. You must be aware of the fact. And Hindu was basically a cognative form of the Sanskrit word, the Persian Sanskrit word of Sindhu. And Sindhu was basically because of the fact that this river Indus was colloquially called as Sindhu, and then it became Hindu and Hindustan. That is how the word came about. And then the how and it, even in the times of Mughals, and then in the times of it was called as Hindustan. But then during the colonial occupation, the Greco-Roman associations that were used in Europe, because of all of that, Hindustan changed its name to India, and that is where we are using it. And it's not just in case of India. British have changed names of a number of countries. For example, Ceylon became Sri Lanka, Burma became Myanmar. So all of these names were also changed by the British. So this is another article that you should read. And then comes the black grain deal. So black grain deal, you should know that what the black grain deal was, because of the war between Russia and Ukraine, and Ukraine being the biggest supplier of food grain to the World Food Organizations and the UN Food Organization. What the Russia had said that if certain advantages, if certain trade restrictions are lifted, then I will allow trade from these three ports of Ukraine: Odisha, Yuzhny, and Chornomorsk, to cities like Istanbul, from where this grain can reach to the African states. But now Russia has put a quarantine there. Russia is not allowing this fulfilled, because of the fact that the western part of the world has not fulfilled its promise of removing restrictions on the exports of agricultural products and fertilizers of Russia. It's not the products that are there; it's just the payment of all these items have been restricted in case of global currencies, and that is why Russia has stopped. And Russia said that I will fill in for whatever thing is left. So this is what Russia is now doing. So read about this. Now let's come to the other article, folks, because the next newspaper is much more important. To the editorial, and then let's go through the editorial first, and then we'll go to the front page and even the explain page. So if you see the editorial, folks, with due respect, now although this is slight criticism, or not a slight criticism, it's a criticism of the Supreme Court of India, where it has played into the political hands of the Solicitor General, and playing petty politics, I would say, where the Solicitor General has had asked the Supreme Court to take it on affidavit from a MP. Now, a sworn MP of the Lok Sabha has already sworn on the Constitution, and the Supreme Court is again wasting its time when it's asking one of the members of the Parliament to go for a debit test, and the Supreme Court has lowered its bar by asking it. So Muhammad Akbar loaned one of the Lok Sabha MPs from JNK, who's one of the petitioners against the revocation of Article 370, has been asked that you should sworn give an affidavit sworn that you believe in the Constitution of India and all of that. Now, this goes against the spirit of what the Supreme Court had earlier said, that the Constitution will work for you even if you don't believe in it, and the wisdom of the people and the constitutional trusts are there. So it goes against that, and it goes into petty politics, and gets into this debate, and not talking about the essential issues. So this is a disturbing this thing. Maybe you can use this as an example where you have politicization of the Supreme Court as well. Now, the next article, bad weather ahead, is something that we've been reading quite a few times. That what we have done is that our environmental construction is not going according to our environmental aspects are not going along with our economic aims, and that is more true with respect to the vulnerable cities that are there in the hilly terrain, because anyways their capacity to basically afford downgradation of the nature is very low. And what we have done through building more highways and building more dams is that we have made this already fragile environment even more fragile, and the cost that we are bearing is because of all of this. And we've not been learning from our mistakes, be it the Kedarnath tragedy of 2013 or multiple landslides that we are seeing. We talked about the article where the highways were being constructed in these fragile zones of Uttarakhand as well as Himachal Pradesh at 90 degree, not allowing the soil to basically stabilize. Apart from the fact that this entire area is geologically very fragile because of the fact that this part of the mountain range is still growing and still shifting. So that is why this is something which is not logical that we are doing. And this is what this article also talks about, the fact that we need to talk about hydrological management governance issues, and especially because of the fact that an important point that is being drawn is that 3/4 of the infrastructure that will exist in cities by 2050 is yet to be built, and we need to have this climate resilient infrastructure. We need to consider that there will be huge climate change impacts in terms of floods and droughts and usage, and you might have this urban heat island concept. So all of this might be there, and we need to incorporate all of this in our building of these new cities. And what should we also promote mixed use land, agriculture and industrial land together should be used. At the same point of time, you should have principle of transit oriented development, that people should not be transiting to very far off places, that also increases the carbon footprint. So people should have a central business district, and people should live alongside it. So people who have geography as an optional would understand economic geography, that how you should have cities to be there. Now this should be the criteria, that you should have transit oriented development. And for this to happen, the problem is that India is divided in its governance at multiple levels. You have the central level, state level, and the local bodies. Often the case is that the state government and the central government decides upon multiple things, but the effectiveness and the maintenance of that particular that particular unit or that particular infrastructure is with the municipalities and the local bodies, which are very inefficient in terms of its functionaries, in terms of its finances, in terms of its ability and expertise. So all of this is missing in case of India's local governance. until unless we can all come together and see it as one project and coordinate the activities of all three levels, we will not be able to solve this problem. So this is another article that I want you to read. If you want to read, you can read Legal Not Always Out. It's about what marriages, what application of marriages could do to LGBTQ. But we've read a lot about this, so I don't really need to get into that. Now this is an article that I was interested in. Less G in G20. Now, what we need is what Sanjay Baru says is that although we have, it's kind of a criticism of the kind of G20 that we've had, and you should also have a criticism of that as well. So, have both kinds of things as well in your answer writing. Now, these we what we have is less government to government contact with our neighboring countries. So what has happened is we are saying, we are talking about global south, we are talking about, we have created this festival out of G20 which is unmatched, and it is hard, it's going to be very hard to match it up. We are having good and extremely good relations with US and some countries in terms of people to people contact, but at the same point of time we have kind of stopped the relationship, the G2G contacts with a number of countries. For example, we don't interact with China, we don't interact with Pakistan. Both of our neighbors, and you can't keep ignoring neighbors. Even if you are not talking on in terms of direct G2G, at least P2P contact should be there, so that should be some avenues of interaction between people. Now, despite the historic levels of trade wars between US and China that is currently happening, the people to people contact, the researchers and the other people that are communicating with each other is very high in case of US and China. So that is missing in case of India. So we don't allow now journalists to China does not allow India's journalists to operate from China, and India is also not allowing journalists to operate from India. In fact, the only kind of study groups that are going are either bureaucratic study groups or military study groups which are being asked to study from a military perspective. But the people to people contact, both with respect to Pakistan and China, I can understand Pakistan because it's a inconsequential country, but especially in case of China, it is a consequential country and we need to understand how they are working. So that P2P contact with respect to China is missing, and even G2G contact is only restricted to certain events now. So that is why this article says there is less of G in the G20 that is there, and we need to have some kind of relationship with China. So you can read this article now. Just a small, I would say, critical analysis, or to say, of G20. Then the next article, which is written by the Prime Minister of India. Let's read this article, folks, and that is why I wanted to deal with this article, because it was written by, at least never in my life I've seen an article by Narendra Modi. Now, let's read this article. Now, you should, if you're, and I'm expecting one question on G20 this year, and maybe a prelims oriented question from G20 as well. So you should read about it. Then you should also be knowing about Vasudev Kutumbakam. One world is one family, and how do we talk about one family? That one earth, we are coming together to preserve the nature, one family to pursue our growth, and one future for our undeniable future is at stake. Now, what are the three major issues that post pandemic that India has taken up? First is that we have changed our realization from GDP centric view to human centric view. Then the other is that world is recognizing the importance of resilience and reliability in global supply chain. This is where India is targeting China here, because it's the resilience that of the supply chain bottlenecks, which hurted the world because of the Chinese crackdown on COVID. Then there is collective call for boosting multilateralism reforms through the reforms in the global institutions like the World Bank, like the IMF, like the UN. So these multilateral global institutions should go on WTO. All these institutions go for a reform, and they should have a larger voice of the global south in all these places. So two important things, you can leave the human centric thing, but two important things that we're talking about is global resilience, supply chain resilience. The other is that of multilateralism, and multilateralism on multiple fronts, be it developmental banks, be it UN, be it other WTO type institutions, where India's share has to increase. India's share and the global south has to increase. And the voice of the global south has been witnessed in this G20 because of the 125 countries that have taken part. Not just that, India has also asked that African Union should be included as a whole, just like European Union is a part of G20. You should have African Union as a part of G20 as well, and a permanent member of G20. Then apart from that, we've also been talking about accelerating the progress towards SDG, because we have gone off track because of COVID. So another possible question that you can have is that what has been the impact of COVID on the SDG, and why and how do we get back to this particular path? Very, very important issue to be covered. Then we have talked about a number of things in the run up to the G20. We've talked about this Chennai HLPs for sustainable and blue economy, resilient blue economies. Then we have talked about green hydrogen. We have talked about Global Biofuel Alliance. Very important, folks. Please read about Global Biofuel Alliance, just like you have International Solar Alliance. We have Global Biofuel Alliance that we are talking about. And taking the benefits from circular economy. Another topic that you should be aware about, what is the circular economy, that how you recycle all your products and keep getting back to this. Then we've also nudged the world towards lifestyle of sustainable environment. We are talking about better outcomes at individual levels as well. Then we also talked about the International Year of Millet, Sri Anna, and how to focus on food security and nutritional security. But at the same point of time, technology is transformative, and we do not have access to technology or the finances for technology, for which the climate finance needs to be democratized as well. At the same point of another area that we have focused on is public digital infrastructure, and we have shown the world that how we are a leader in digital public infrastructure, and how the world can learn from us. And what we have done is the last point of the article is very important. India's most important point that we have brought through the G20 is that India has made the global table larger by ensuring participation of a number of countries. 125 countries are coming together to participate here, and the entire African Union is also coming. So we have made this in our presidency, we have made this as a festival, as a people's festival, and made this as a bigger global table where countries can interact. So this is the article that you can read. Then there is another article, lift off and the law, not very important, but what you should be aware about is the Artemis Accord, for which we have already signed the Artemis Accord, and we have already implemented it. But apart from that, I didn't find it very interesting. The article that I found interesting was our Children on the Brink. It talks about the quota suicides, and it talks about the fact that the number of suicides are increasing. We have 42, and you can note these 2-3 statistics, because this is a part of your society, that the National Crime Records Bureau talk about that a student takes life every 42 minutes, and this is the vulnerable age group where this impression is being formed. Especially in case of NEET, there is a lot of NEET and JEE. There are a lot of suicides because the young mind is a very fragile mind. There are a lot of expectations. These are people. A lot of students are spending a huge amount from their parents in the anticipation that they can take them out of poverty, they can take them out of misery, and when they fail, it has a psychological dent. And to aid to that is that the coaching industry that exists in places like Kota, the coaching industry, like at least in Delhi, the industry of civil services is not that. I mean, because you already have graduate students, and the average age of Delhi for preparing is much higher. Therefore, people are much more seasoned as compared to 16-year-old, 15-year-old who are going to Kota, who are at that vulnerable age. And at that age, when you get these kinds of setbacks, it's very difficult sitting in a room and facing failures. And there is no mental health being catered by these coaching institutes. So all of this is a very bad cocktail for your mental health, and that is what is leading to this suicide. And Rajasthan government has taken a right step in the direction where it has talked about investigation and to find solution towards this entire quota factory that is there. So you can read about this. Now coming to the next page, you can just read about the ASEAN countries, and Japan joins India and China's neighbors in rejecting the Beijing map. Then page number 9. So IRDAI plans 100% cashless health claims, flexible plans and for flexible plans for the elderly. Now what has happened is that IRDAI is saying that all these cashless health claims should be 100% cashless. People can go to the hospital and cashlessly claim their health insurance is what they are talking about, and they're talking with the general insurance as well as the health insurance companies to come up with this. At the same point of time, they're also talking about flexible plans for the elderly, because the average age in the Indian subcontinent is increasing, and these people will require some kind of social benefits, some kind of health benefits, and for which the government with IRDI with is coming up with these flexible plans for the elderly people as well. At the same point of time, it is also the last part of the article also talks about how we can leverage AI, and how we can leverage big data for insurance. For example, for the insurance market, for example, how you are driving your car, what kind of ways that you are taking, then whether you are running or not every day, all of that could determine your premium rate. So this is what the article also talks about, that based on real-time measuring of data, we can also have different premiums, and so that we can better measure the outcome and better give the insurance cover as soon as we know that there has been an incident. So this is the article that talks about this. Then you also have another article which you should read. RBI governor asked fintech companies to city self-regulation and not revenue. So the RBI governor said that in the global fintech festival, that all these fintech companies are more focusing towards revenue rather than customer centricity. There are a lot of complaints that have been coming in. Exploitation in terms of higher interest rates, mis-selling of products is what is happening. You have unethical business practices that are coming. You have breaches of data that is happening. All of these are issues that are there with the fintech, and the fintech companies should focus more on consumer centricity and consumer satisfaction. At the same point of time, there should be some kind of self-regulation organization which these fintech companies should come up with. So the other article talks about this. Then the third article which you should be reading is leveraging capital for multilateral development banks, crypto norms, climate transition to be the key for G20 summit. So G20 summit, the finance track had talked about 10 issues. Of these issues, one is the climate resilient features, how to address the debt of these countries, which China kind of opposes, because of the fact that China is the main country which has given a lot of these high level debts to a number of countries which they are not able to pay. Apart from that, we are also talking about levying taxes on revenues of multinational firms, so that there is no loss of tax revenues by other countries, and information sharing agreements and tax sharing agreements for non-tax purposes, another issue. And the last part of the article talks about how there should be push for enhanced capital requirements for multi-level development banks, and how the multi-development banks can focus on this portion is very important. Multi-lateral development banks can focus on the triple mandate to address and eliminate extreme poverty, inclusive growth, and financing global public goods. These are the three areas where the multi-development bank should work on. So this is the article that you should be reading. Then coming to the last part, which is explain page. Now, Digene, you should be aware of the fact that Digene, and you must be aware that Digene is one of the drugs or one of the syrups that people take in case of gastritis. So now this some of the batches of Digene have again found to be wanting. And remember WHO's good manufacturing practices. Now only I think 20% of India's pharmaceutical were satisfying these good manufacturing practices. Now it is said that all of these big companies should follow it within 6 months, and within 1 year all the pharmaceutical companies should follow these good manufacturing practices. So this is something that again has picked up that India pharmaceutical products are not to the best of the qualities. The other article that you should be reading is driest August falling reservoirs, especially that of the southern India. Now we already know that we have had the driest spell of the monsoon in case of August because of El Nino. Typically we receive somewhere around 100 250 mm of rainfall in August, which provides us 22% of the entire seasonal rainfall that we get. This time we have only got 150 or 160 mm of rainfall, which is a 36% deficiency. Now the rainfall in August is very useful for not just for the kharif crop, but also for the rabi crop, because this is the time when the recharge of all these reservoir happens, and that is a major concern, that especially in case of South India, where the deficiency is in case of 50%. The reservoir levels, if you see this graph, the reservoir levels have gone down, which will have an impact on the rabi crops, because this is where the rabi crops takes their water drain from. So this is the article, and then the last part of the article where the High Court has said that instead of using service charge as a word, you should use staff contribution as the word, and there should be a 10% cap on the bill amount, and it should not be forced onto the consumer. They should be informed that the company is or the beverage industry or the food industry is basically imposing this, and you should have the permission of the customer before putting this 10%, the maximum 10% staff contribution. So this is the article that talks about. So with this, our entire newspaper is over. Now we will meet on Monday, folks, and we will cover the Friday's newspaper as well as Saturday's. So thank you very much, and I will meet you on Monday at